Uncover and Elevate is the next evolution of Liberate Your People Pleaser. I'm Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and after coaching hundreds of clients, I am unapologetically clear on this. People pleasing is a symptom with a deeper cause. Being in a toxic relationship or career and feeling trapped has a deeper cause. Avoiding difficult conversations has a deeper cause. Self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, confusion, feeling insecure all have a deeper cause. In Uncover and Elevate, we are going to look under the hood every week to uncover what the deeper causes are that shape our lives, including the ones that make breaking a pattern, even one we want to break, so hard. Then we will elevate our lives with tools designed to transform those deeper causes and deal with the symptoms. Join me each week as we uncover and elevate our lives. And now, here's this week's episode of Uncover and Elevate. Today, we're talking about avoidance. Why do we avoid? How can we stop avoiding? Maybe even why it matters. Like why should we stop it? We've talked about this topic before, but it's so important because avoidance is a really sort of seductive and tricky coping skill. So we all learn how to avoid things from, when we were really young. We tend to avoid things that we that feel undesirable to us in some way, right? So you all know how much I love the word desire. So this is the opposite. We tend to avoid those things we do not desire, the things that feel like they're going to cause us stress or that trigger fear or that trigger anxiety or a past memory that you don't want to remember, so we'll avoid that. We'll avoid relationships. We'll avoid conversations. We avoid all kinds of things because in the imagining of handling it, whatever that means in any given circumstance, the handling of it is intimidating, or we get fearful of it, or we feel anxiety around it, or we're afraid it's going to make somebody mad, or whatever it is. And so we decide to avoid it. And you don't necessarily consciously decide to do it. It's kind of avoidance and denial are very similar. So we just sort of slip into, in this sort of unconscious way, the avoidance of it. Maybe, and if we're thinking about it consciously, there's that thought of maybe it'll go away, right? If I just don't do anything, maybe it'll go away. But I want to talk today about some of the pitfalls, sort of what it costs us to avoid things in our life that need attention, from something small to something large. So it could be, on the small scale, it could just be like avoiding making your appointment to go to the dentist. Or I've been avoiding having my foot looked at for, I'm not proud to say, years now. I did something, I don't know, somehow hurt my foot. And this started years ago, like before COVID. And it just kind of would flare up, bother me sometimes, sort of felt like a bruise, like I dropped something on the top of my foot. And so I just kept ignoring it, right? I would just avoid taking care of it. I had a lot of other shit going on in my life in those years, and a pandemic. And I just didn't, do anything about it. I have avoided it. And now it's getting to the point where it pretty much hurts every day. And so now I'm making an appointment to see a podiatrist about it. I'm going to stop avoiding it. But what does it cost me? Like, even in that, like, I can tell now it's my left foot that bothers me. So I'm starting to feel in my left knee and hip and, that side of my body, or in my right side, excuse me, the effects of compensating for that hurt foot on the left side. So I've been avoiding this thing for years. I am in, denial about it, whatever words you want to use. And now it's beginning to cost me something, right? It's starting because it's probably been costing me for a while, but now I'm really noticing at a level I can't ignore how not only is it, my foot's still hurting, but now the right side of my body is probably getting out of alignment because of all the little ways that my body favors that left foot. So that's kind of a small thing, or we could avoid, it could be even smaller, right? It could be avoiding doing the laundry or whatever. It can be really big things like avoiding leaving a job or leaving a relationship we in our gut know it's time to move on from, and we just avoid it. We just keep dealing with, we've gotten very used to the rhythm of being in it, even if it's a painful rhythm. Just because things are painful doesn't mean we decide to deal with them in a healthy way. We can absolutely avoid. Avoidance is a very common coping skill when things are big and stressful, like a relationship that's out of whack, a job that isn't serving you anymore. Maybe it's something about your business, like maybe you need to change who your client is, a total, not just a pivot, but I used to work with whatever people in only with entrepreneurs, and now I'm not going to work with entrepreneurs at all, like in my coaching practice. That's not true, but but as an example, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you could decide to not just make a pivot in your business, but that it's time to completely shut down this division or who I've identified as my ideal client. Like I have a coach that I follow, and recently she took down a whole part of her business, multi-million-dollar section of her business that was all in coaching entrepreneurs on growing their business. So it could be something like that as an entrepreneur, that you just need to, you need to totally shut down and start something new, or it could just be a pivot. It doesn't matter. Those are all still big decisions. So we avoid things at all levels, from the large to the small. And I think what I want you to think about today is what it costs you. I mean, there's so much in the realm of our energy and our peace of mind that we set aside in order to avoid. So avoidance, because, at some level, avoidance is an illusion. We can't avoid anything. I mean, my foot was hurting every time it was hurting, not, whether I was trying to avoid taking care of it or not. So the things we are avoiding are not going away, right? They're still there. They're still creating, at a minimum, subconscious anxiety and stress and fear and all those kinds of things. Or, maybe also in a very conscious way, but by avoiding taking care of it, we have just cost ourselves our own peace of mind, our own sense of ease in our life, our own free-flowing energy, because it's like putting up a dam in a river to avoid things. And so they don't really, it stops things up, right? It backs it up. And eventually it's going to overflow, or something's going to happen, because avoidance is not an effective way to deal with something that's, not working for you anymore in your life. It also, I think one of the most important things, and I'm really interested in your thoughts on this, what I really see in it, as I was thinking about this podcast today and this topic, is that it strips us of our power. When we avoid something, in a way, we are saying some version of, well, I can't handle that, or that's too much for me, or that's going to create an outcome I don't want, or whatever. So I'm going to avoid it. Well, when I do that, I have given that thing, the relationship, the circumstance, the situation, whatever it is, more power than I have. Because if I felt like I had the power, I wouldn't have any need to avoid it. I would just go take care of it. I would pivot my business. I would totally change my business. I would quit the job. I would leave the relationship. I would fold the laundry. I would go to the foot doctor. Somehow in our avoiding of, these things, we end up giving those things our power. And there's really nothing that feels worse than when we've given our power away. Like that is just, it's such a terrible feeling. And in and of itself, it creates so much stress and shame and, negative self-talk, criticism, judgment, all this blame on others, blame on situations. We feel like a victim, even if we don't want to use that word, so everything that we have that creates a loss of power for us, one, I'll just say affirmatively, that is not in your highest good. Losing your power is never in your highest good. That is never in alignment with your inner wisdom. That is not what life calls us to give up our power. And now it's what happens. And there's a lot of things, all kinds of things about a culture based in patriarchy, based in white privilege, based in all sorts of, judgment, racism, all the other isms that there are many things that invite, encourage, will even feel like they demand us to give up our power. And that's how we know they are not the truth, because the truth never asks us to give up our power. It asks us to stand in our power, to stay aligned with our power, to have the difficult conversation when we need to have it, to leave the job, to leave the relationship, to say no to a parent who can't support the life you feel led to live or who you are. It's become very clear to me. I mean, I've always known this on some level, but I think especially after my mother passed away, and because she was sort of the last of her generation. And for me, the last person who I felt judged just for being who I am. So there have been several people in my life. I've married some of them. And my mother particularly, not that she did this intentionally or to cause me harm, but it was still a truth that she did shame me for being who I am. The churches I grew up in shamed me for being who I am, partially just because I'm a woman. And in a patriarchal system, that's not as good as, right? I'm an other. So we all have plenty of reasons, right, that the environment that we've grown up in has encouraged us to give our power away, to avoid, to people please, all those things. This is not, my point today in our podcast is not about justifying, so to speak. There are plenty of reasons that you got into this habit, that we all got into this habit of avoiding and of giving our power away. But what Uncover and Elevate are about, what I am about, what I do with every client I work with one-on-one, and when I have group programs, which I don't right now, but my digital programs like the Solve It Method, everything I put in the world, every Tuesday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, when I'm live on Instagram with my new show, Delight and Desire, which I hope you'll join me for. Everything I'm doing in one way or another is to help you uncover what is not serving you anymore, like avoidance, and elevate what does serve you, in this case, this conversation, getting your power back. And so everything, because once we get our power back, everything else starts to sort itself out. We feel the energy, the confidence to go have those difficult conversations, or to go get some coaching or get some, whatever resources to help you have that confidence. Like, I just got the most amazing email today, and like it made me want to cry. But it is a past client, and I haven't heard from her in years. We worked together like 5 or 6 years ago. And in response to my email today that I sent out to my group, she said that our working together, she was a one-on-one coaching client, is the reason why she finally embraced her own power. That it was our work together that was, I like to always consider myself a catalyst, right? I'm not going to be able to I don't make any client embrace and regain their own sense of personal power. But I am a great catalyst to helping you find it, because it's all inside of you. And so that's why I'm so passionate about one-on-one coaching. That's why I want everyone to be able to think of it as just something, it's a piece of your self-care plan, okay? And just like you hopefully take the time to, eat well, eat nutritiously, eat in a way that serves your body, at least most days, to get some movement, to get the rest you need, all these things that are part of self-care, having fun, being playful, getting out in nature, all these things, that working with a coach for the emotional aspects of your life to get your power back in these emotional and relationship arenas. But I mean, it starts with you. You're not going to get your power back through a change of circumstance. You're not, and nobody else can actually give it to you. It's not like if patriarchy were to die tomorrow, we would suddenly, the rest of us would all have our power back. It's an internal journey, because your power is inside of you. It's never left you. And so all you need to do is go get it, so to speak. But that going and getting it is easier said than done. And so having a facilitator, having a catalyst like me to help you do it is a really powerful way to do it. Just like getting a personal trainer at the gym is going to help you reach your fitness goals faster, easier, probably in a more thorough way than what you could do on your own, or figure out on your own, or go watch YouTube videos about, right? There's a million YouTube videos out. You can watch a million YouTube videos about movement and weightlifting and, cardio and all the things. Okay. We are not lacking for information at this point in our existence as a culture. But what we need is to put an end to this ridiculous story that I think is really a part of how patriarchy has controlled all the rest of us, is that this idea that we should be able to do it all on our own. If I'm struggling emotionally, if I'm struggling in my career, in my relationships or whatever, I should be able to figure out how to make that better somehow. And the truth is we can't. Like, we are so deep into our own lives. There's so many things that we can't see. We've got 90% of what we're thinking and feeling that is at a subconscious level. So you can't see it. Something else has to happen for you to see it. So that's what I do, is help people see that so they can find their way. And with the help of my tools and all those great things that come with it, to clear out those things that are not serving them anymore, like avoidance, and find that power that is already in them that allows them to then show up in their lives in a completely different way. And so that is what I want for you. And oh my gosh, I hope this podcast helps open a door, makes you think of something different, is a catalyst to something else for you. When I show up on every Tuesday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on Instagram for Delight and Desire, that's why I put these things out here, is so that you can start to get some of these tools and a new way of thinking and a new way of understanding, for yourself. And the next level of that is working with me one-on-one, because so much, probably obviously happens when we're working together one-on-one that cannot happen in a podcast, that cannot happen on an Instagram live. And so you get to show up for that hour for each session. We are just solely focused on you and what needs to happen to get you back into your own power, or to find it initially. I've worked with plenty of people who have really never had any sense of their own personal power until they did their work with me. And so it doesn't matter if you feel like you don't have it, can't find it, or if you have found it, but realize there are certain arenas maybe in your life where you have a hard time stepping into it, staying in alignment, and you give up your power. You do it through people pleasing, you do it through avoiding, you do it through accommodating, you do it through silencing yourself, whatever those things are. Then you say, okay, let's get into some coaching so that I can take advantage of what Brenda has to offer as this catalyst to help me tap into my power, even in these situations that right now are tripping me up, and then help me find my way through my access to my power to how I want to now respond in these situations. And so, my coaching with clients, much like I try to do here on the platform of a podcast or in my Instagram live, is to both give you some tools and inspire you to be able to show up for yourself in a new way. It's just a lot deeper and more, very specifically targeted for you, obviously, when we're in one-on-one coaching, because that's all that matters is you. So I hope this all makes sense. I really would love your feedback on this idea, this notion that when we're avoiding, we are giving up our power. And the best way to get your power back is, one, just to be able to have that internal dialogue that sounds something like, this is an illusion. I feel like this thing, this job, this relationship, it could be your finances, it could be your weight. It doesn't matter what it is. This thing or this person or this situation has more power than I do. And that is all, whether you've used those words in your own head or not. That's what's happening when we feel stuck. That's what happens when we are avoiding something, when we feel, just sort of frozen around it, like there's nothing I can do about that. That is a lack of power. And the first step in getting your power back is to realize that. Sometimes just in the realization of it, you can get yourself back in alignment with your power, like to ask yourself, one of my favorite questions, who would I be without the thought? So if I didn't have the thought that this situation was more powerful than I am, what would I do? I still have the situation. I still have the job I'm hating, or the relationship I'm unhappy with, or not enough money in the bank, or, whatever it is. I still have that situation. But now I'm going to start brainstorming solutions or responses to it based on the fact that I am more powerful than it is. And being able to start to let yourself journal about that, imagine about that. Okay, so how would somebody behave if you can't see it for yourself? then think about somebody you don't think would be bothered by that. People, you know, if it's finances, people who've been millionaires, lost everything, millionaires again, you know, okay, so how would they handle my financial situation? Because they're not afraid, they're not avoiding, they know they have power in it. And so if I'm going to have power in it, you know, let me start to imagine and brainstorm what that would look like. What would how would a person respond in their career or with this difficult situation professionally or in my business, who knew they had their own power? You know, the sort of, what would Oprah do, or what would, you know, whatever Richard Branson do, or whoever you admire as an entrepreneur, you know, what would they do? Because they know they have their power. And so we can start to use that question to brainstorm or ask other people. But I do a lot of that in one-on-one coaching, because a lot of times we actually can't imagine what it would be like to have power in any given situation. And so we need somebody to paint that picture for us. And that's what I'm here for. So I have recently had a couple spots open in one-on-one coaching. So I have spots right now. You can go to the link in my bio on Instagram, if you follow me there, Brenda Florida Coach, or go to the show notes here in the podcast and book that 15-minute connection call. And we'll see if coaching is right for you now, if I'm the right coach. No obligation, of course, no pressure, nothing like that. And, you know, take advantage of this opening in my calendar and in my client space to bring you back into your power, to bring you back into your truth, whatever that is, whether you need to know what it is or own what it is or anywhere on that journey, and what the next steps are moving forward. Because I always have that sort of practical side of me, right? Where I'm not going to just leave you with an inspiration and tell you to go figure it out on your own now. No, we're going to figure it out together. You know, so I would be honored to be part of your journey in that way. So again, just go to my bio in Instagram or go to the show notes here, book that 15-minute call, and we'll chat about it. And I love and feel so honored to be a part of your journey, whether it's through the podcast, through my Instagram stuff, or you work with me one-on-one. I am just grateful to be here, and grateful for you to share this work with friends or family or others that you know that would benefit from Uncover and Elevate, or following me on Instagram, any of it. I love the shares. It's really important to me to get to as many people as I can reach with this message that everything you need is inside of you. And you don't have to figure out alone on your own how to tap into those resources. There's nothing wrong with you that you can't tap into that by yourself. Like, all of that is bullshit. It takes a village, right? And I love being part of the village for you. So I will look forward to seeing that connection call on my calendar, and see you in our next episode of Uncover and Elevate, and hopefully on Instagram for Delight and Desire on Tuesdays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Uncover and Elevate. Check out the show notes for tons of great information and resources, like if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast so we can uncover and elevate an issue in your life, just complete the form in the show notes. You can follow me on Instagram at Brenda Florida Coach. You can work with me one-on-one or get additional information about one of my group or private retreats by completing the form in the show notes. And I would love it if you would share this episode on social and tag me. I'd also love for you to post a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. It makes such a big difference and will help others find the show. And I'll be incredibly grateful. This is Brenda Florida, Certified Life Coach, and I'll see you in the next episode of Uncover and Elevate.